Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursday Thyroid Talks, episode number 23. Yay! So excited to be here. Let's see. Hi, Soni. There you are. Let's give it a second for everyone to get notified. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. So, welcome, like I said, to episode number 23 of Thursday Thyroid Talks. I'm your host, Sarah Lohman, and I'm so excited to bring on a thyroid warrior today because it's been, I think, since episode number 1, since I shared the background story of why I started this podcast. And since I know I have new subscribers and a lot of new followers to my page, I wanted to just give you a little blip of what I went through and my inspiration for starting this podcast. So in 2015, I was at the lowest point of my health that I'd ever been at. And things were so bad for me that I was having panic attacks at work every day. And between the panic attacks and the fatigue, which the fatigue fed into the panic attacks, I could no longer work anymore. So I ended up going to my primary doctor and begging him to take me out on disability. But he was not convinced that I couldn't work. He just thought I was under stress. So he was like, basically, go see a therapist. And I was so bummed because I had such little energy that I couldn't even drive. And I was like, great, now I have to ask all these people to take me to these appointments, and he's going to put me through all these hoops. And I was just, so frustrated. So I did everything he asked. I went and saw this therapist and all these red hoops and, the tape that I had to go through. And a few weeks later, I ended up back in front of him and he's like, okay, I'll take you out on disability. Super relieved. I basically went home and just crawled back into bed. But little did I realize that this was like rock bottom for me, and I was insanely depressed. I was having anxiety attacks at home by myself, and just the weight of all of the symptoms and everything was so hard on me that I'd lost hope, and I was just really sinking further and further down into a black hole of illness. So fast forward 6 years later, I'd gone through tons of stuff and I recovered my own health, and I've unidentified myself with all of my diagnoses. It was like one normal morning. I was taking the kids to school and I dropped them off, and I came back home and I pulled up in my driveway, and before I could get out of my truck, I heard the words go through my mind: you need to share their stories. Sharing their stories is going to help them not feel so lonely, and it's going to reinstall hope in them. And it was the most beautiful divine message that I've received. I've received a lot, but this one was really special to my heart. And I never knew I was going to do a podcast. This was not, forecasted in my company or in my future. It was literally a divine message given to me of how I can help and support women of this world. So I started Thursday Thyroid Talks on the basis of exactly what I was told to do: bring thyroid warriors on to share their stories, so other women struggling just like I was. All I wished for when I was sick was that I had someone to talk to and someone that could understand what I was going through. And this is what this podcast is for, is so that we can share our stories so you don't feel alone, and so we can revive and restore each other's hope, and that this can also lead into your healing as well. So today I'm excited to bring on my friend and colleague, Soni Pelty. Soni is a thyroid warrior herself, and she's been through, some hell and back in her life and health. And now she's a love and relationship coach, which I think is so awesome. And I can't wait to bring her on and hear her story, you guys. So, Soni, go ahead and send me the invite to join, and we'll do this. Takes a few seconds. There you go. Awesome. Here she comes. There you are.
Hey, Sarah.
Hello, hello. You look so
Hello.
beautiful.
Oh, thank you. You do too.
And
And
thank
I'm
you.
so excited to be on Thursday Thyroid Talk. So thank you for inviting me.
Yes, of course. I'm glad you're here, and I can't wait to hear your journey from the beginning.
Absolutely. But first, let me just tell you what an amazing job you're doing in this world, just bringing all these stories and helping women not feel lonely because, you know, there are so many times that we feel that we are the only ones struggling and what's wrong with me. And so beautiful, such beautiful work you're doing. So, yay.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad you're here to be a part of that. So, thank you. So,
Yeah.
why don't you start, rewind time and start at the beginning of your journey, and um what what year was it? What was your life like when you started having symptoms and started
Mhm.
noticing something was going on?
Yeah, yeah. So it was 1998 when I was diagnosed. It was, so I had my son, my firstborn, in October of 1997. And I think it was around March or April um, when I started feeling off. Um, I started putting on some weight. So weight gain was there. And I would feel very cold. But what was very different was that when I would feed my son, I would literally fall asleep on him, like literally drop. My head would just literally drop. I'm feeding him and I would just drop. And
Mm.
it was March, April, and in Houston, it's hot. And I would wear like sweaters to bed because I was cold and my skin was drying. So all these symptoms. And so actually, I had to go to my primary care physician and tell her, could you please do a run the TSH tests on me? Can you do a thyroid test for me and see what's going on? She's like, no, she did like a physical exam. She's like, doesn't look like you have thyroid. I said, yeah, I'm just feeling very off. So she went ahead and did it. And when my results came back, she's like, I don't know how you didn't pass out because zero thyroxine.
Wow.
So my body wasn't producing any thyroxine.
So you said you went to your doctor and requested
Yeah,
the
because
test. Had you researched online like what symptoms were and familiarized yourself?
so my mom has hypothyroidism.
Mm.
And so after my son was born, I went to visit her. She lives in Dubai. So I went to visit her. And my aunt, who's a doctor, she looked at my throat and she said, I think you may want to get checked. I think you may have thyroid.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay. So I really didn't look up. I just went with my gut just
Mm.
because my mom has it. And my aunt suggested that I go get a thyroid test. So that's when I went to my physician and I told her, can you please run these tests for me?
Mm. Okay. Well, that was nice that you had an aunt. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, yes. And so when she came back and she told me that I'm shocked that you didn't pass out, I'm like, oh my God, everything makes sense.
Mm.
The weight gain, why I'm feeling so cold, why I have no energy in me. Like I wasn't able to wake up in the middle of the night to even feed him.
Wow. Because you were so fatigued.
So fatigued, like
Wow.
zero energy.
Wow.
And so in the beginning I was put on like a really high dose, like twice a day, and to just bring the levels back to normal. And then slowly and gradually, when the thyroxine levels kind of balanced out, then I was able to bring my dose back down. But every visit, like every 6 months, right? After a while, after it balanced out and reached the normal level, every 6 months they would have to increase my dose, and it kept going up. And I was like, I'm not sure like what's going on, but now when I look back at it, it just makes so much sense. Because I was just living such a stressful life. It was a stressful life. It was a toxic relationship. My ex and I never really ever had a great relationship. And just to give you a little bit of a cultural background too, so the first 10 years of our marriage, we were living with his parents. So it's very traditional in the Indian culture, the joint family system.
Okay.
So I basically lived a life of limitation, restrictions, like a very constricted life. And I was only a month from 20 when I got married. So I was still a teenager when I got married. So there was a lot of fear in me. I was always trying to please everybody at home, everybody in my life, not just at home, my friends, everybody. So there was this constant fear. Did I upset anybody? Did I say something wrong? If I would see a little frown on someone's face, I'll be like all in this fear energy.
Is people pleasing, because I'm not familiar with the culture too much, is that more of like a thing that women are taught to do, very much like pleasing, and you're there to like care about everyone else? Or was that like, is that more you and your personality?
Well, I think some of it is culture, but I think it's overall as women, we're taught to put everybody else before us, right?
Well,
So it's
yeah.
not as much a cultural thing. It's
Yeah.
just as women, we are overgiving. We are always trying to make everybody else comfortable, put everybody else first. Like, I do not matter. My needs don't matter. You know,
Yes.
my
Amen.
desires don't matter.
You are right. Thank you for rephrasing that. I guess I was just meaning like, is it more so? Or
well, yes, it has to do with the culture. But I think mine was more like, I guess it's just the conditioning.
Okay.
Right? And I feel like the way we live our lives, our emotions, our thoughts, our environment, all creates disease. And first I thought, like, obviously, looking back at my life now, I know what caused it. But when I was diagnosed, I was like, oh, it was just meant to be because my mom has it. It's hereditary, right? And so many of us think that, oh, we have genetic markers, we have blood markers for the disease, and that's why we have it. But honestly, once we really change our emotions, our beliefs, our thoughts, and our environment, things start changing for us.
Amen. And like, we can go on a soapbox on that, and
Yes.
we will. But to keep it about your story, tell me more about your marriage. So you got married at 20.
Yes.
How old were you when you had your son?
I was 25 when I had my son.
Okay, so you're living with your husband and his parents. It was just the four of you?
Yes.
Okay. So what was the dynamic of your life like, with living in like a double marriage almost?
So, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So it was, like I said, it was very restrictive, like asked permission for everything. And I felt like they thought I was a kid, so they could enforce the rules on me, and they could tell me what to do, what not to do, when to call your parents, when to go visit your parents, why are you home at so late? Where are you going? Why have you invited this person? Like, just a gazillion things. Like, I hadn't completed my undergrad when I got married. And so it was an arranged marriage, just to kind of back up a little bit.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so they knew, my ex-husband and his parents, everybody knew that I was going to go to school. But there was his dad wasn't happy that I am going to school. So it was like just asking permission for everything, a lot of restrictions, a lot of limitations, not being able to speak my truth or live my fully expressed life, right?
Wow.
So no
That's
wonder.
insanely stressful sounding.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now when I think of it and I look back at it, I'm like, no wonder I developed hypothyroidism because, again, like the more I study about the energy centers and the chakras, like the throat chakra is connected to our thyroid, right? So because I'm not able to speak my truth and live my life and just be all the time in fear, no wonder.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that because in my studies of what the thyroid does for us as well, it does so many things. So I love that you touched on the throat chakra. I just did a reel on that last week. It's so beautiful how the endocrine system lines up with the chakras.
Yes.
So it's our voice, which a lot of us in bad relationships get stifled. And so those emotions get suppressed because we're not speaking our truth. Like you said, we can't be free. But I also learned that when our thyroid will slow down or shut down, it's also a mechanism of protection.
Yeah, you're right.
It's trying to protect us. It
Yes.
slows us down on purpose. Think about it. So like for me, like my ex-husband was an alcoholic and he always wanted me to go into the garage and hang out. And he hated that I didn't drink with him.
Yeah.
So when I was sick, I was too sick and I would be in bed, I was away from him. I was protected from him.
Yes, I totally get you on that. So my ex, and I found out like probably within the first month of our marriage that he was a porn addict, a narcissist. So again, what you talk about protection,
Yeah.
it is so true.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? It's just that what you experienced, with alcoholism, it's the same thing with pornography. It's just different kind of abuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you when you talk about protection.
Oh, I got so many chills on that.
Yeah.
Woo. Okay. Wow. That's,
So it's just our body trying to protect us and slow us down, like you said. Yeah.
I mean, now that I'm seeing your big picture, I'm like, it totally makes sense to me too. Yeah. Yeah. So you were under all the stress and it was like your body was already shutting down. And by the time you had your son, it was almost like, it was probably just, it was a lot of everything, but it was probably almost just like your body had to give its all because when we're birthing a child, we 90% of our immune system and all of our adrenal strength goes to that child.
Right.
And a lot of women get depleted in the childbirth process and then come out sick, which is very common. And then you add all of that on top of it too, and it's like there's just just a shit show.
He was born in October of 1997, and March 1998 is when I started noticing symptoms. So it was like fairly quick, and the birthing process has its own stress, and it takes a lot from us, right? But when you couple that with the drama that goes on in the family and not being taken care of and trying to navigate the family crisis, that just adds its own level of stress.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
So, we were still living with his parents. My mom came down to help me. So it was in-laws, my mom. So you can understand the dynamics of the whole situation.
And you just wanted to go run and hide and put the blankets over your head. Wow. Yeah. So your mom and your aunt guided you and you go to the doctors and your meds can't get regulated because your emotions and your life is so unregulated as well.
Yes. So it
Mm-hmm.
took a couple of years, and then for the longest time, I was on a stable dose. But again, it's just those hormones, those synthetic stabilizers, the pills that are kind of not good for you anyway, right? I'm sure you can tell me more about that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
you know, the more I started working on myself, started my healing journey, doing deep inner work, I noticed that my health started to improve. I know we're just talking about thyroid today, but I had developed other health conditions too, which I'm happy to say that through emotions, through doing the healing work, through opening my heart more, I was able to heal those without medical intervention, right?
Mm.
So in the last year or so, would say, every 6 months when I go to visit my doctor for my thyroid checkup, my levels have been going down, and she's been looking at me with this curiosity. She's like, "What are you doing? Like,
Mm.
what's going on?" So consistently every 6 months or so, my thyroid levels are pretty, I'm sure in the next month or two they should be. I started with like so when I was diagnosed, it was really high. I don't even remember what um what dose I was on, but then it came to 111 mcg, then 100, then 88, and now it's at 50. I'm like, so it's like so liberating and empowering that we have the power in us to heal our body. It does take a lot of work. It does require us to change how we are showing up, find ourselves, start loving ourselves and putting ourselves first, right?
Absolutely. So I'm curious, I'm not surprised that you said you had other illnesses show up because that's very, very normal. Because by the time you hit that level of depletion where you're passing out when you're feeding your child, there are just snowballs of storms happening in your body, from gut imbalances to mineral imbalances to
Yes.
nutritional depletions, the negative mental looping and all these things that can also feed into the other sicknesses. So what else were you going through?
So this happened much later in my marriage, but I would say towards the end of our marriage. But I developed this severe pelvic pain, and it would start a few days. It would be around the menstrual cycle, but it was not menstrual cramping. It was like incapacitating pain where for 15 days every single month, where if I cough, it hurt. If I would sneeze, it would hurt. It was like, how millions of porcupine pins just,
Ooh.
it was so painful. Coughing, laughing, sneezing, like even if I had to change sides at night, I had to sit up. And so I basically just couldn't, no workout, obviously, because it was so painful. Just debilitating pain. And I just couldn't figure out. I went to several gynecologists, and so every symptom indicated endometriosis.
Okay.
And so I like checked off every symptom, but with laparoscopy, they didn't find any endometriosis. So we are again back to square one, like what's going on? So they wanted to put me on birth control pills, partial hysterectomy. I'm like, no, I have a high tolerance for pain, so I'm just going to tolerate this pain, I guess, because I don't want to put my body through, birth control pills, more hormones, and, just take away half of my uterus. So it's very interesting. So by this time, so it started probably, I would say, a year or two before I got divorced, and it went throughout, like for 5 years or so. While I was single, I was dating. But like I said, in 2016 was when I actually started my healing journey. Late 2015, 2016. And the more work I did, the more I healed, the more I put the focus on me. Things started to shift for me. And in 2017, I met my now husband. So that was 2017, October. And in February of 2018, pain just disappeared. Like it, like magically nothing.
I'm honestly not surprised. And so I just want to wring the system's neck out because everything that they were wanting to prescribe you for help, it just goes back to my theory of like they just want to maim, medicate, or mutilate women. And you
And
have to
correct.
protect yourself.
Absolutely. And it's
Yeah.
not healing, it's just suppressing, right? It's not healing
Right.
your
No,
body.
yeah, none of it
None of
reaches
it.
the root causes. None of it.
Yeah.
And it just drives me crazy. So it's literally my mission to like save women from this. But you know, I can't help but think, because going back to like the thyroid was protecting you, the thyroid could have been protecting you with your ex-husband's abuse and the poor relationship and his pornography addiction. I almost feel like there was some womb trauma, and that there was some possible almost like shutdown of that part of your body too, out of protection as well.
Yes. And you know what? I was at the Joe Dispenza retreat
Yeah.
last week. And it's so interesting that you talk about womb shutdown because
Mm-hmm.
it's not just, so our first three chakras are connected to our survival, our well-being, the reproductive organs, our creativity. It's all connected there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you suffer from trauma or abuse, all those centers just get imbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
And now everything connects because, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty sure my sacral was all messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. I went through that as well. My ex-husband being, he had not some, he was actually a porn addict as well. And he had two affairs on me and really tried to also cram porn down my throat. And I was just so beaten down because these narcissists and these abusive men, that's what they do. They really beat us down and they get their way. And I didn't even know I was holding on to womb trauma from
Yeah.
things I'd been through in 2009 until I started working with and healing with Nicole, who our coach,
Yeah.
healer that we've been working with for the past year or so. I've been able to bring some of that up. And
Yeah.
I speak to a lot of women who are also holding a lot of womb trauma from abortions and miscarriages and, you know, abusive sexual relationships and stuff. And this is a real thing that women need to realize is could, and probably if you've been through this, is stored in your body that you have to actually start healing in order. And I love that you say you started healing and then boom, it's just gone.
It's just gone. And it's me changing my perspective, me opening my heart. And I had a pattern when I was dating. I was attracted to bad boys.
Yeah.
Uh, so
And
that
it,
doesn't really heal you, right?
no,
Uh,
and
so
that
when
makes sense why it was still doing it.
Right. And when I healed my intimacy fears, I opened up to all kinds of men. I was literally dating everybody. I didn't look at like, oh, he's not my type. I'm not going to go out with him. All I focused was, as long as I'm safe, I'm going to date everybody that shows up. You know, obviously I had some deal breakers and those are important, but I just threw that checklist out and I opened my heart for everyone who was there to treat me with love, respect, and kindness.
Mm.
And when I
Yeah.
did that and I allowed him to enter my life, things just started shifting. And I'm going to tell you, it wasn't easy because when affection and love is withheld, and I would be very curious why this pattern would show up for me. Like these kind men would come into my life and I would get this love and affection, which by the way, my one of my love languages is physical touch and the other one is quality time. They're pretty much on the same score. And so when I was dating my now husband, and I think it was on the third or the fourth date, he was being very affectionate and he was holding me, and I was like cringing. I'm like, what's wrong with him? Like, why is he trying to cling so much and hug so much, right? But I was already working on my journey, and I was working with a coach at that time, and I processed through that. Instead of pushing him away this time, I'm like, I do this every single time. I need to do something different if I want something different in my life, right? Uh,
Amen.
so I just worked through that because I realized I had this light bulb aha moment that my ex would always taunt me that, oh, you want to hug and kiss at every corner. Now tell me, who doesn't want to be loved and
Yeah.
held, right? So somewhere in our marriage, I pushed those emotions down, that desire to be held and to be hugged and to be cuddled and to be loved. And it felt alien to my body, even though that's my love language. And I love somebody who's affectionate towards me. My body was just like pushing that person, like, move away. It's like danger.
Yeah. Well, I could see how you would just naturally distance yourself from that if that was the feedback you're getting. Like you're getting made to feel bad for being affectionate. So you're like, oh, and you just suppress,
Yes.
because like you're almost encouraged to, or you're rejected and you don't want to be rejected anymore. So you suppress.
Yes.
And it's funny, we're so much alike. I have pretty much the same love language. Like for me, it's like intimacy and affection,
Hmm.
and then like gifts, or like, like quality time too,
Right.
like, and it seems like in abusive relationships, part of this sickness that is brought on is from that, the lack of the proper kind of physical touch.
Yes.
And we're starved and we're neglected and we're abandoned. And so we internalize that and start to hate ourselves, and we flood ourselves with all of the negative, low vibe thoughts and
Yes.
feelings, which in turn just makes us sicker and have more symptoms. It's a
Yes.
vicious cycle.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So how long were you actually married to this guy?
22 years.
Woo. Wow.
It's a long, long, torturous, tumultuous.
Yeah. I mean, I was with mine for about 20, married for 14, so I understand. Yeah. And so you actually were able to start healing while you were in the relationship, you said, like towards the end?
uh, of my first marriage?
Yeah.
No, no. I started
Okay.
healing only. So I got divorced in 2013, and my healing journey didn't start until end of 2015, 2016. And like I said, the main healing started when I really opened up my heart. Obviously, I started to notice myself more. I started to love myself more. Found who I was.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, like, I felt like my identity never belonged to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it belonged to the Indian culture, it belonged to my parents, then it was my ex-husband and his family, my kids. And um, it was after so many years, I felt like I just get to decide who I am. I get to figure out who I am. My identity just belongs to me, not to anybody else.
I love that. That's like, that was my first exact step too. But I I remember I was just like, I don't care what I do. I'm gonna literally go out. I'm gonna try everything. I'm
Mhm.
gonna play. I started doing handstands, cartwheels, like anything and everything I could to find who I was again. And I would go for bike rides. I'm like, what do I enjoy? Who am I?
Yes.
And I just was like, same thing as like, I was a mom, I was a wife, I was sick.
Mhm.
I was sick, Sarah, and I was gone. Same thing. Like I was just gone, and I felt like I was no fun. I felt boring. I had no, um, my ex-husband wouldn't let me go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was never able to pursue anything that I loved, and health and nutrition were always like my closet hobbies, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
if I would go buy organic, he would say like, "Oh, why do you waste our money on that
Oh
crap?" You know?
God, I heard the same thing. Why do you go to Whole Foods to shop? Like, what's the good about that place? I totally relate to you, Sarah.
I know. I'm like, we got some twin stories
Yeah.
going on here. I love this. Yeah, and you know, I I let him win in a lot of ways because I was so sick I couldn't fight my fight and fight the fight against him anymore. And same thing, I lived with his mom and dad for 10 years because we lost everything in the 2008 crash and moved in with his parents. And just being in that environment also made me sick and depleted me.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly can say I decided to die. I was like, I'm not going to get out of this. I might as well just allow myself to get sick and die.
Mm-hmm.
And I just determined to, I was 33, 2 kids, and I was like, I'm going to die, you know, because I didn't know what else to do. And so that's when my brother actually was suddenly shot and killed.
Oh my.
He was shot by the San Diego Sheriff Department 14 times and killed. Like, I talked to him the night before. I woke up, he was dead. And it was like, okay, holy shit, life is short. What am I doing?
Yes.
And the way I think you could probably say the same thing is like, I just decided to drop a nuclear bomb on my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we both always knew that once kids would go to college, I don't think we would be together. And,
Yes.
and I was 42 when we got divorced. I'm like, I'm still young.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put myself through 10 more years of, or whatever, 8 more years of this. And actually, I do want to share something else too. My son was 15 at that time, and he was actually the catalyst. He gave me the courage to step out. As
Mm-hmm.
moms, as parents, we try to stick to a relationship just because, oh, we're doing this for the kids, but actually, toxic, tumultuous relationships negatively affect our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually gave me the courage and the strength, like, Mom, why do you want to put up with this?
Oh, I love that. So he was the
He was,
one that was like, Mom, wake up. Like he didn't want to see you suffer
yes,
anymore.
yes.
Oh,
So yeah, so that gave me the courage and, just like waking up, like, shit, what am I doing with my life?
yeah.
You know, I don't know what's out there for me, but it cannot be worse than what I am living through and living
True.
it.
And you know, when your kids are telling you, encouraging you to leave, that it's really bad and you need to
Yes.
listen.
Yes. And my daughter would always get scared, like if I would even try to have a healthy discussion, like, Mom, please don't say anything because he's just going to get angry. Why do you want to say anything? So I realized that I am giving the wrong message to my kids. I'm telling my son it's okay for a man to be abusive and disrespectful to his wife, and she will stay no matter what. And I'm giving my daughter this message that your husband can be, your partner can be abusive, and there's no way out for you, and you have to live a suppressed life. And I was just basically telling her your voice doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And
I had the exact same motivation.
yeah, so I really just want everything to end here with me. I am really on a mission to end all the karmic happenings, like, the disease, the lack, the fear. Our fear is always going to be there. It's not going to go away. It's how we navigate it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, I love your story so much. It's so empowering, and I really hope that everyone that listens to this one day hears how important this thread is. The thread that we're both resonating with of we were in a terrible relationship that made us sick.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get out, we had to choose us. And it wasn't on a selfish level.
No.
And that's the very first step that I always tell my clients is you have to find this die-hard dedication to love yourself first.
Yes, yes. And find that self, because that self
Yeah.
gets lost somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, we just lose ourselves, and then after a while we don't even know who we are. So we have to start the journey first to figure out who we are, get to know ourselves, what we like, what turns us on,
Yeah.
what, you know, what we want, who are we, right?
Yeah.
Once
Literally, like, listen to music. Like, you know how many people don't listen to music they love anymore? I'm like,
yeah.
put some music on and jump around.
Yes, just move.
It feels so good.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, go out with your friends.
Yes,
You know?
and once you find that self that's lost, then you can just love on you. Turn up that volume on loving yourself.
Yeah. And finding a really good coach to guide you and to motivate you and support you. I didn't even know about coaches back then.
Yes, I didn't.
Yeah, I just used my own sheer courage, grit, and balls and pulled myself out of it like
Right.
you. I
Yeah.
didn't even have family help me. I sold all of my property and I moved across the street into my neighbor's house. And that's where I filed for divorce and started college. It was scary as hell. But, you know, if you are able to find and hire a coach for support through this, that would be if I could do it again, I would find a coach.
Oh, totally, totally. So when
Mhm.
I found my coach in 2015, things started changing for me, but it wasn't easy. I'm like, oh my God, change is so hard. I have to show up differently. Oh my God. And doing things that are not normal to us, or I mean, they're good for us, but that's not how we have been raised and taught. It feels hard.
Mhm.
But I promise you, like, you know, and you know this, like, the more we stick to it, the more we are coachable, the more we stick to it, uh, life moves forward.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do anything. Like, I'm so grateful that I invested in coaches and
Mhm.
did the work. It's not just about hiring a coach, it's about doing the work too, which is the hardest part.
Yeah. Yeah. It's being willing to change, being willing to face yourself and admit things, you know, like a lot of us when we're in bad relationships, we turn a blind eye. We live in denial. We don't want to see the truth
Yeah.
because we know we have to change and it's scary. And, you know, sometimes even the thought of going through a divorce is really scary. The thought of having to share the kids is really scary. I had all the same fears, you
Yeah.
know? I filled out all the divorce paperwork myself wrong. I served my ex wrong. I did everything wrong. But, you know, in the long run, it worked out. And I was able to eventually get the support I needed. And and not to mention, there was a lot of divine, beautiful, divine intervention that was supporting me. And I was choosing to live in gratitude, even literally, even at the point where I was almost homeless.
Yeah.
And I was crying my eyes out because I didn't know where I was going to live the next day. There was divine intervention that saved me.
And divine intervention is so beautiful when we just let the universe just receive.
Yep. Yep. And just stay strong, you
Yeah.
know? And I know that there's a lot of women that are in similar boats. I have worked with some, I've talked to some. And so, do you want to give any final words to any of our thyroid warriors that may be in, you know, a poor relationship or struggling with their health because of similar things that we talked about?
Yes. So, you know, like one of the of all the fears that you mentioned, one of the biggest fear and why we stay in toxic abusive marriages for as long as we do is the fear of the unknown. We don't know what's out there. Our life, even though it's not the best, is known, it's familiar. We know how, we've learned how to navigate that situation, right? And it feels okay. because we don't know what's out there, we are fearful of it, and we just don't leave. And the message I want to leave women with is that there is magic in the unknown, and it cannot get any worse than what you're living through. So have the courage to love yourself, find yourself, and trust the unknown. And once we show up for ourselves, universe shows up for us. It's just the first step. We don't have to know how you're going to navigate the whole situation. Honestly, when I left my marriage, it wasn't rosy in the beginning. Yes, I took a step out of it. It got better, but it was not where I wanted to be. Right? So it took me a while to get to where I am today. But it was just knowing the first step, and then the resources, the teachers, everything showed up. Like, I didn't even know what a relationship coach was. I don't know from where I got this thought after 3 years of randomly dating unsuccessfully, that I Googled love and relationship coach, and I'm like, this is it. I know I'm meant for more. I know I'm meant for a loving relationship, and I know I wanted to get married again at some point. And I went all in and never looked back.
That's right. Never look back.
And I cannot imagine my life without support of a mentor or a coach.
Yeah, seriously.
Little hand holding, giving that confidence that, yes, you're on the right path. Yes, you're doing the right thing. Because when we do something new, we don't have that confidence. We are walking on shaky grounds. And when you have that support of a coach, of a community, of a sisterhood, it just makes it easier.
Amen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So just believe in yourself, trust in yourself, love yourself.
Yeah. And honestly, as you do those things, as those were my very first steps. And then I started figuring out a lot of my root causes to the symptoms. Mine didn't just magically go away. I had to actually heal imbalances within my body.
Yes.
That were, I believe, the depletions from the stress.
Yes.
So I had to not only rebuild my physical body, but I had to rebuild knowing who I was, loving myself, giving myself permission to put myself first and not feel bad about it. And then a lot of other things just started falling into place, and I was able to slowly, effectively reverse all 25 of my symptoms. So I think between Soni's story, my story, it proves that you're not just genetically screwed. You're not, even though your mom said she had hypo, look at how well you're doing, you know? So it does really come down to healing all 8 dimensions of your health. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure. I'm so grateful for you letting me share my story.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I will talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.